as a generalist, you have to learn to surge and maintain, right? This is how you kind of improve in different areas, right? At certain times in your life, like when you're writing a book and you're doing a lot of research, like this is where you're surging. This is where you want the breakthrough. This is where you want a PR. Okay. You can't do that in all areas of your life at all times. You will die, or you'll at least burn out, but you'll probably just die, right? I would anyways. So what you have to do is you have to just learn to maintain those other things. And, you know, whatever they are, if it's the gym, it's the business, right? If you're running a business or your career, right? You're not trying to suck at them. Like, you don't let them go. That's the mistake. You have to find some like good maintenance level where you just can hold on to what you got, or even be okay with it sinking a little bit. That's another thing that people need to like get over. Like, it's okay if like your skills, you know, get a little bit rusty, because look, you can come back and boost it right back up. It's not a big deal, right? But people like have this weird mentality, and I say people, this has happened to me, man. I had to get over this too. It's like, man, if I can't be the best at all times, then to hell with it. I'm not going to do it at all. And that's a recipe for just never being a great generalist, right? You'll hit this like peak, and then you'll just let it go forever, right? Then and never and that's not the mentality you want to be in. So you have to get in this. If you're trying to be a master of many things, not just a jack of all trades, but truly a master of many things, you have to learn to have phases and cycles of your life where you can push really hard in one area and still push hard in others, but maybe not as hard as you were at other times, if that makes sense.
100, absolutely. I've used the analogy of the highway of strength with people I've worked in, where you have your 3 lanes. You know, the left lane is the surge, like you talked about. Like, that's when you can push pedal to the metal and you're going faster. Right lane is like cruise control. Okay, maybe there's a lot of stuff going on. And then middle lane somewhere in the middle. And I always said, like, everyone might be at different speeds, but they're all still moving forward.
That's a great analogy, by the way. I love that illustration.
Yeah. And what I've tried to do with people is like, you take each thing, like, okay, where's physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and kind of break those down. The more you can get aware of all those different things. Yeah, maybe it's a good time to physically surge. Like, you have more time, you got a lot of energy, and you want to really push to get some body composition changes or really maximize your strength. Where other times, like, I remember when I started this new business like a couple years ago, and I needed a lot of mental faculties to do all the things you do. That's when I went more like an intuitive approach of training, where it was very kind of lane work, you know. It's
but
like,
you didn't let it go, and that's what's so commendable. It's like, oh yeah, I'm not at my peak in deadlifting right now, but that's totally okay, right? But what has always like sort of shocked and offended me, and you can't really, I'm not offended, but like all the fitness people who would go and start a business and then got hella fat, right? It's like, come on, guys. You like, if you're going to be teaching other people how to like have a sustainable approach to fitness, like, you gotta kind of walk the walk somewhat here, right?
Oh yeah. Well, and you start to everything when you start to do that, I can't help but think that you start to become a persona. Like, you're not acting as that person if you're speaking about these healthy things, and you know intrinsically that you're not doing it yourself. Like, I mean, it's a hypocritical thing to do.
I agree.
You know that, but that, you know, that analogy, I always thought that was kind of like that difference between structure and intuition. And I personally, over the wintertime, had to shift that up. I've always been more of a lean guy, and like, I felt kind of in my identity more as like someone with lower body fat. Like, yeah, my strength was good, but it was never like maximized or muscle gain, where I'm like, I really wanted to put on some muscle over this past year. And working, you know, with my buddy Tyler, like, I was eating a lot. I wasn't like getting that cardio, like that conditioning started to go, and it starts to fuck with your head a little bit. Like, where I'm like, oh my God, like, what's going, it's like, and it's different. And then, you know, a few months ago, got back into kind of like a lean cut and realized like, yeah, like, put on some muscle and feel really good by doing it. And it's like, yeah, you need to go into those different phases. And I think it's known in some ways in health and fitness, but it's not different, I think, in anything that you're doing. If you have a book that's coming out, like, that's the time where you might need to surge in left lane at that point, and then everything else is kind of more right lane.
Yeah, that's great, right? Like, this is something that definitely, like, we can just apply just within fitness and the different goals, whether you're cutting or adding muscle or whatever. But I want to like zoom way out and be like, no, this is something that you should be using for your life as a whole, right? And different pursuits you have in your life, assuming there's many things you want to pursue. Real quick about the structured intuition, you made a good point there, Mike, right? The reason your intuitions are kind of going off feel, or however you want to call it, I would say, works for you is because they're informed and they're shaped because you've spent the time studying the structures and the principles and following the programs, right? They're kind of shaped or formed intuitions, right? So they're going to be like generally reliable.